Hey, Alex.
How's it going, man?
Good. I'm really excited about this because Futurism.com is one of my literally favorite media sources because they cover all the cool stuff that I like.
That's great.
So
I'm kind of curious, how many people in the audience have ever read Futurism.com before? Okay, we got a few. That's not bad.
Yeah, interesting.
Better than when it didn't exist, right?
Yeah, I feel like everyone does. I don't know. Okay, so what is media?
Yeah, so just as an FYI, my plan for this talk, I'm kind of going to go off the cuff. I'm going to tell you guys, my experience building this media company. We launched like a little over a year ago. Before that, I had never been in media. So I came from no background at all. And now we have about 20 million monthly readers across all platforms. Right, so I can kind of give you the nitty gritty about digital media, how it works, the experience from me, and kind of my opinion of what media is. And so going back to that question, I think media it's a vehicle for storytelling. I mean, even the word media itself is plural for medium, right? And that is the way in which we consume stories. So text, video, imagery, audio, these are all different mediums for storytelling. And right now, there are certain mediums that we've gotten used to, right? We love consuming content in video form. We love reading. We love infographics. We love podcasts. But I think that as the definition of media continues to evolve, we'll be seeing new creative implementations of that.
So what's like the point? Like why? What's the purpose of media?
The purpose of media, great question. So if you go all the way back to the first medium in general, right, it was the written word. And the point of the written word was to educate, to inform, to disseminate, and to store information. But then you fast forward to today, right? And there are so many different competing forces for your attention. It's not really good enough just to educate and to inform. You also have to entertain, right? You want to learn something while also enjoying the process of learning that thing. And one would hope that media also it hopes to inspire, right? You want to feel inspired by the media that you're consuming. You want to create media that causes an actionable change in someone's lifestyle or their opinions about something well after the fact that they've read it.
I was going to ask what's the purpose of you guys at Futurism, but I feel like it might be sort of touched on.
So I built Futurism. How many people here know Ray Kurzweil? Yeah, so I read his book, The Singularity is Near, like 10 years ago, right? And my mind was blown. I read this book and I wanted to go out and I wanted to talk to everybody about it. I wanted to say, hey guys, like technology is progressing so fast. And this is really important because your lives are going to be transformed. And nobody cared, right? Nobody wanted to talk to me about it. And what I ultimately learned was that there's this kind of enormous information asymmetry that exists between those that understand the exponential progress of technology and then the general public, right? And the best example of this is you go on the streets of New York City, and I know because I did this, and you ask people about self-driving cars. You say, hey, what do you think about self-driving cars? 50% of people that we asked this question said, self-driving cars, what are you talking about? Cars will never drive themselves, right? They don't understand that cars are already driving themselves. They're coming. They're going to transform all aspects of your life, the way you live, the way we work. And this is only one implementation of one technology. So Futurism's purpose is really to educate, to entertain, and to inspire people around these frontier technologies. And since launching, we launched like 15 months ago, right? We have 20 million monthly readers across all platforms. We create a lot of video content. I don't know if you guys have seen that on Facebook. Kind of 1 minute long, exciting highlights of a certain technology. Last month, we had over 100 million video views. Right, so we're growing fast, and people want to be inspired. And we feel like we sit at the intersection of where kind of science fiction meets reality in that regard.
I dig that. So like the line between a brand, like between brands and media is becoming blurred as like brands pay to create media and there's more sponsored content and native advertising. What's like going to happen with that?
Totally. So it's always safe to assume if you're not paying to consume content, you are the product that is being sold, right? All the time. And that is the way that it's always going to be. And until you start paying for content, you're always going to be the product that's being sold. You're always going to be advertised against. And if you look at kind of the origins of digital media, right? They monetize via display ads, only display ads. And the amount of money you get from display ads is based on the page views. So then all of a sudden you have publishers all focused on optimizing one thing, which is page views. Everybody's making clickbait titles, the quality of content goes down, everything kind of sucks. And then the value of display ads go down because there are so many page views that are happening all the time. And then all these publishers go, okay, how else can I monetize, right? And publishers in general only know one thing. They only have one customer, and that's brands. So they say, how else can I get brands to pay me to create content? And that, brands naturally, they want to blur the lines, right? They want to create sponsored content, but they don't want you to know it's sponsored. But as a publisher, you're handicapped, right? You only know one source of revenue, and that's generally brands. So I think it's going to continue to be blurred. And I think that there is like an escape route, and that escape route is these publishers discovering some other way to monetize. And so that could be via like attaching a store to your publication, right? You can monetize by selling goods. You could have like some kind of fund-backed media company where you're making investments in some of the companies that you profile, something like that. And then there's like the most promising thing, in my opinion, which is micropayments, right? So I think people ultimately should be paying for content. And if you look at something like YouTube, I don't know if anyone here knows, but every time you watch a YouTube ad, the YouTube creator gets paid pretty much 1/10 of 1 penny. So I'm kind of curious, how many people here would pay more than 1/10 of 1 penny to not see the ad on a YouTube video? Would you pay more than 1/10 of a penny? I'm assuming a lot of people would, right? And so the reason why this doesn't exist is like it's an infrastructure question. Micropayments are hard. They're not easy to transact. The transaction cost is oftentimes too high. And so there are some promising technologies there to mitigate that, like the blockchain, which we can get into a little bit more later. But on the brand side, I see that continuing until there's a better solution.
Yeah, it becomes weird, right? Because like, if brands are just buying content, then like,
totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a general problem with media right now, right? Is all publishers, like the big secret is no publisher knows what they're doing. Like it is the Wild West out there. Everybody's struggling to monetize. And you see a lot of these older companies that have high overhead, like they have no choice but to try to get as many page views as possible because they have to maintain a certain amount of revenue. And it's a crazy scene out there, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So this next question I have is like, what are the biggest threats to success of media? But like, I actually want to switch it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what is success for media? Like,
that's a great question. So I think success for media is being able to influence a perception about a certain topic, right? And my go-to example for this, and one of the reasons why I think the ability to have a media company is so powerful is there's this technology called CRISPR. How many people here know what CRISPR is? Okay, so we got a few, right? So CRISPR is kind of a gene editing tool. It allows you to kind of literally cut and paste from the genome. And this discovery was made maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it never really hit the mainstream until about 18 months ago when MIT Tech Review, they ran one article about it. And that article kind of conveyed it in a negative light, right? But everybody read this article. There was just one article, and all other articles stemmed from this single one. So some technology that could have such a profoundly positive impact was negatively perceived by pretty much everyone because of one piece. And then you see regulators, right? Regulators don't know what CRISPR is. They don't understand it. All they know is that the public thinks it's bad. So then they regulate it. They try to outlaw it. And then you see kind of this like ripple down effect of negative coverage of media. So I think the most promising way to measure success of media is by the ability to influence public perception.
Maybe we should outlaw like all media that isn't generated by the creator, him or herself.
Possibly. I mean,
that's radical.
Maybe.
Who said that? So what's media going to look like in like 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think media right now is at a very bad place. I think that publishers rely on display ads to monetize, and 50% of millennials use ad blocker, right? They're not monetizing there. All advertisers say mobile ads are the future. 60% of mobile ad clicks are accidental, right? They're due to fat thumbs. It's literally, it's an accident. So I think like the future of media, the big question is how do you monetize content? Is there going to be a better solution than display ads or than sponsored ads? Perhaps, but perhaps not. And everybody says that the future of media is going to be virtual reality, augmented reality, and that's great. And there are some great experiences. But the reality is that unless the consumers are paying for these experiences in some way or another, they're never going to be cost effective, right? Like you're never going to be able to have this interactive media experience at scale unless you're paying for it, or unless somebody's paying for it. And if somebody else is paying for it, then again you're the product, right? You're being sold something. So I think these are all kind of important things to weigh. Like I think virtual reality is very promising. I think immersive storytelling is certainly the future. I don't think anyone's figured it out yet, and I think that right now it's going to be limited to the select few that have a headset. How many people here have a virtual reality headset? 1, 2, right? So it's not at scale yet. 5 years, maybe 10 years, sure. But I think that the big question is how to monetize.
So like which formats? I mean, you mentioned VR, but like, if it's not a Facebook instant play video, it doesn't exist to me. So
Yes.
like which formats are going to just like rule the world in the future?
Yeah. So I think Cisco came out with this big report that said that 80% of all content consumed on the internet will be in video form in the next 5 years. So video is certainly king. Facebook's betting on video. Facebook has all the sway in the publishing world right now. Right? There's no other channel as powerful as Facebook when it comes to distributing content. Snapchat is getting up there, but Facebook is king. And the reality is Facebook has so much influence that they can create the future of media. And they're saying it's video. And so if they say it's video, it's going to be video. But I think that it will continue to trend towards full immersion. So, augmented reality, virtual reality, in some regard, it will get there. I don't think it's going to get there anytime soon, though.
So this next question I like. Yeah. So Ray Kurzweil, he mentioned earlier, I don't know if that many people raised their hands. Like he wrote a book called The Singularity. And Ray, he's like the chief futurist for Google. And his whole thing is that we're going to get to this point in like 2045-ish called the singularity where like technology and like human/human biology intersect and we live forever, etc. So like how would a future that includes wearables and implants that like connect, people to content and to each other and to the internet, how would that transform media?
Yeah, totally. So I think in general, when people consume media, they consume a lot of media, and then in hindsight, they think that 10% of the media they consumed was worth consuming again. Like, if they knew what it was going to be like, they probably wouldn't have done it. And I think that is a very inefficient process, right? So I think as these technologies continue to become more integrated into our lives, wearables, implantables, media will become more customized, right? You're going to be delivered media when you want it, when you need it, as opposed to kind of trying to find what you're looking for in like this long tail. So I would say that's my big opinion. I mean, there are technologies like Magic Leap. I'm sure the majority of people have heard of Magic Leap, right? Where they project display directly onto your retina, and like it makes the virtual world indistinguishable from the actual world, right? I mean, that is what they do is like for the test, and they're very secretive about this. But what they do is they'll bring you into a dark room. They will like turn on the lights, and you have to try to figure out what is real and what isn't real. And most people can't figure out what is and isn't real. So I think that as we continue to head in that direction, media will become full immersion, more customized, and more direct to consumer.
Yeah, so we had Neil Harbison here earlier,
Yes.
The cyborg, and he, has this implant that actually connects him to Wi-Fi and he has 5 friends that he's like given permission to send him like a color from the continent that they're on.
That's awesome.
So he can experience like the sunset, and yeah, it's really crazy.
That's really cool.
Talk about custom content.
Yeah.
So like kind of a little different. So like, all you do is think about the future and cover future stuff. Like which part of the future, unrelated to media, are you just super freaking stoked about?
That's a good question. It's a very good question. So I'm pretty big into the blockchain. I don't know if anyone else here is into the blockchain. The idea of a distributed ledger. I think that can transform everything, including media. I think blockchain is the best possible way to implement microtransactions on the web. And so I think if microtransactions can occur, the entire media landscape will change. So blockchain, media, big impact. Overarching, I mean, I'm pretty big into CRISPR. The idea of genetic engineering, being able to identify and remove certain, I would say, dangerous sequences is very, very powerful. I don't think enough people they understand the potential ramifications of this. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I mean, China's been, right, so in the US in general, it's been illegal to experiment on human embryos using CRISPR because of this whole story that I mentioned, right? So that was the regulatory landscape. China said, oh no, we're going ahead. Like we see the potential of this. And they did. And they've been doing that. So for the past year, they've been doing incredible research into this space. And I kind of frame it as like this genetics arms race, where China is doing all this incredible research in these fields, and then Europe and the U.S. we've kind of been very hesitant. But then you saw Europe come out and say, "Oh man, we're falling behind. Like we got to catch up here." And so then they deregulated the entire process. Now you can experiment on human embryos using CRISPR in Europe, and now in certain cases it's legal in the U.S. Right, so you kind of see this race to be able to genetically modify humans because the potential economic impact of that is enormous.
Yeah, CRISPR, it's essentially like drag and drop genetics,
Totally.
Which is insane. What do you think about space?
What do I think about space?
Should we go?
Yeah, so I mean, I would love to get to space, like in my lifetime, without a doubt. I think that the privatization of space is a great thing. I think that Elon Musk is doing great work. I think that the idea of inhabiting Mars by 2025. I think that's his goal. He always like makes it earlier. I think that's incredibly ambitious, but I think it's awesome, right? I mean, how many people here would love to go to space if they had the opportunity? There we go.
Wow,
And that's a
I wouldn't have guessed
market,
that.
right? That's a market. Like there's an enormous market for that. And then there are things like asteroid mining, which itself is enormous, right? Like the first private company just got permission to land on the moon, right? To mine for minerals. And so I think there's a lot of exciting stuff happening there. I mean, I think it's going to take a while before we see anything mind-blowing, like getting to Mars, but it's really exciting.
Sick. Awesome. You guys have any questions? Bam.
So you talked about like the genetics arm race.
Yeah.
What about the AI arms race?
Yeah.
You talked about like 10% of the articles we read are actually useful. What if we got like AI to read it for us?
Totally, man. Yeah, I mean that would be great.
We tell the AI what we're interested in and we're not interested in, and then let the AI decide what we read.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an arms race for AI companies, right? Apple just bought another company yesterday or like 2 days ago for $200 million. If you can build an AI company right now, like somebody will buy it for a lot of money. So it's a great space. I mean, there's tons of great work going on in AI. I think it's really interesting where you see the integration of AI in robotics. So this company, Hanson Robotics, out of Hong Kong, they create super lifelike robots that are like unbelievably lifelike. They were on the Charlie Rose show, I think like 2 years ago. And now you can imagine, implanting the AI that is in like the Now robot into this human-like being. And I think there's so much potential there. And I think short term, we're going to see the integration of basic AI into these human-like robots, which will be exciting enough. And then, long term, there's the potential for AGI and all that good stuff.
The future is bright. All right, before we give a huge clap, one more question. That guy had it high up. Go ahead, man.
When it comes to monetizing a content site,
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot of challenges right now. With integrating products into the site,
Yeah.
do you think that it's more attractive to go the route of affiliate marketing where you link outside of the site to actually bring e-commerce transactions onto the site?
That's a great question. So we've like crunched the numbers on this a lot, and I think bringing e-commerce onto the site is a lot more profitable. Affiliate linking can be good if you're doing it at mass scale. Like you assume that you get 5% of the transaction. You got to do a lot of transactions. You got to sell a lot of products, and I think that with affiliate linking too, you're kind of blurring the lines between sponsored content and like true journalism, which is dangerous. But for us, right, like I think as a publisher, the best thing you can do right now is find creative ways to monetize. Our creative way that we found, we license our content to governments, right? So we work closely with the government of the UAE. We have an Arabic science publication as well that's blowing up. I mean, they love it there. And we partner with the government to bring it there, where we hired a team. Our Arabic Facebook page is like 4 million followers, more than our English page, right? So we partnered with them. We found this creative outlet to like license our content and to monetize without having to put display ads. So if you go to our site, we have no display ads at all right now. We only monetize via these like licensing and sponsored content deals.
Dope. All right, man. I'm a softie.
So with the transition to customized media for you when you want it, how do you avoid the problem of like creating an echo chamber, confirmation bias of only being surrounded by, things that you want?
That's a great question. I think the echo chamber already exists. I mean, I don't know if anyone else here is like shocked by this whole Trump thing, right? But I go on Facebook and all I see is like anti-Trump, and
Nobody's
I'm like,
mentioned Trump yet.
where is the pro-Trump stuff? Like, what's going on here? So I'm already in an echo chamber in many respects, and Facebook, it's in their best interest to keep me in an echo chamber because they want me to keep clicking on stuff. So I'll keep clicking on stuff as long as like in general it's something that interests me, and if it's not interesting, I probably wouldn't click on it, and therefore I think I'm already in an echo chamber. So I think that pushing more towards customization wouldn't necessarily make us further or push us further into an echo chamber, but I think there has to be something that has to change in general for people to get out of that.
All right, dope. No more questions. We're done. All right, cool. This is so cool. I love that.
Thanks again, man. This is awesome. This
Dude,
is a great
huge
event.
clap.